Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. You see him there, Zac Jackson of The Athletic. We're going to talk some football with the Browns, and Zac is a huge MAC basketball guy, and we had a stunning upset in the MAC tournament. We'll get to all of it in 30 seconds, but first, let me tell you real quick that Sunday is the last day to take advantage of this deal. Bet Rivers is giving you a bonus bet to use on the Cavs this stretch run. Now through Sunday, go to your Bet Rivers app in Ohio. Use the code ATB223 to get a $10 bonus bet. Download the app. Use the code today. That code again, ATB223. Available in Ohio only. Must be 21. Eligible players only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Zac, how are you today?
I'm good. First week of free agency, so it's a little crazy. It's been mostly kind of quiet and predictable, to an extent here in Cleveland, but I'm good. So, this team is. This week was a reminder, Bull, that this is an ongoing process. Of fixing a lot of things, and there was never going to be, even with splashier moves, it was never going to be a one-step thing. So they felt like they did what they had to do, mandatory. Right. Way more than sexy. And does it work out? We'll see. But it's the first step of very many towards getting this offense.
Oh, yes. Fixed. Yeah, we've talked about the three main positions we've talked about. Obviously, quarterback, they've done nothing to this point. Wide receiver, they've done nothing to this point. But on the offensive line, as you alluded to, they've done a lot. They've signed 3 free agents, including re-signing Tevin Jenkins, and they've traded for another. I think they've done a good job here. I mean, did they overpay a little bit? Maybe, but your offensive line was so bad, you had to have at least serviceable NFL starters, and at the very least, they now have that at 3, maybe 4 positions.
I agree. Are they overpaid? Sure. Is almost everything in free agency an overpay? Sure. So I don't see gross overpays.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
you
I agree.
Take a risk. Zion Johnson made sense. He's 26. He's missed 2 games in his career. Yeah. He's played at a decently high level. He's played in big games. So with the older guys, Elton Jenkins and with Titus Howard, who they traded for, you're taking a little bit of risk there, but they have proven track records.
Yeah.
And they both have versatility. And so that's the thing where we talk about, well, what would the line be if there's a game today? Well, there's not. And
right.
Even in September, I mean, we've seen it's not about the first 5. It's about how you adjust. We don't know who they're going to draft or have the chance to draft. We don't know, where they view these guys positionally. Do they think Luke Whippler can be a starter? Do they hope that DeJuan Jones or can they count on DeJuan Jones to play half a season healthy if they need him to? So, yeah, it all sets up for they pretty glaringly need a left tackle and a wide receiver 1.
Yep.
They devoted probably too much money to the offensive line to just replace older guys with older guys. But as you said, they're starting almost from zero. So they've got guys that have done it. And then ultimately those guys stay healthy. Those guys play well. One of them plays well for a couple of years. And that gives you a chance to grow into your offensive identity. And whomever the quarterback is has to have offensive line play and has to have wide receivers to have any chance. Because as poorly as last December went, we know we can't say that anybody had a chance out there with that supporting group they had out there for the last 4 games.
And that's all fair. And the Browns have put themselves, and Andrew Berry has put himself in this position where he's had to spend all this money on offensive line because they haven't drafted much at offensive line, period. And where they have so far, it has not worked out.
Yeah, I mean, the Zach Zinter pick cost him $50 million. Right?
I mean, yeah, you're right.
I mean, I'm not trying to get personal with the kid. Yeah. He was a good player in college. He's never recovered from the injury. He's been on the team 2 years, and he's never played. He has played a handful of significant snaps in 2 years, and he's a guard. They need tackles, and they spend all this money on guards and centers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. I think a lot of fans think, oh, this signals they're definitely going to take a wide receiver at 6. I don't believe that at all because left tackles, as you said, is still wide open.
I don't believe that at all. Now, has it changed my thinking from definitely tackle to over wide receiver at 6? Maybe. It makes me reconsider, but not at all. Well, this draft class, if you look at all the draft nicks, receiver is more deep than top heavy.
Yeah.
For as bad as Judy was, he is under contract. They have devoted a lot of resources to him. He does have some track record. Now, there's no consistency in his track record.
Sure.
But a very viable plan would be if you really like a tackle, or if you have an opportunity to trade down and still get a tackle, you can get two NFL quality receivers later and say we're a year away from having that true number one. Or you hope you hit. Like second round receivers hit all the time. And we've seen the track record of the Browns giving picks away or using them in other places, and then other teams find number one receivers in pick 48, pick 56, things like that. So, but look, they sit in a good position with 3 of the top 40, with 4 of the top 70, with some flexibility they're not really stuck in. So we're wondering what the hell's going on at quarterback. We're wondering where these guys fit. But it's if you just look at the Browns, if you don't look at the realm of everything else, if you think this team needs to work on itself,
right,
then they added much needed talent and experience. Now, who have they caught? And what's it translate to? We'll see. There's always danger in older players in free agency, but just in terms of having baseline competence, that's what we're chasing. 4 years to the week after the worst trade in NFL history, they're chasing baseline competence, and they have no cap room.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, that's why they're in this situation. All the the trade, and then all the mistakes they've made around that.
All the money they pushed forward for the last 2 years just went out the door. Joel Bitonio is not going to be on the Browns in 26, and he has a $23 million cap hit, and that's not Joel Bitonio's fault.
No.
Right?
Yeah, no. They did. Listen, this is how they do business.
Correct.
And if I said this yesterday on UCSS, if the Browns if they had they have such an advantage over pretty much any team in football that their owner, for all his flaws, and there's a lot of them, is willing to constantly spend. Most owners won't do what he's doing. So that's a big advantage. And yet they've done such a bad job of bringing in talent from the draft outside of last year that they haven't really been able to take advantage of it.
Right. Everybody's like, oh, he's done such a good job. This is such a poorly run franchise. It's such a poorly constructed roster on the offensive side. It's a well-constructed roster on the defensive side.
Yes.
And you're counting on it to just go without – look. We're still – which window is next for the Browns, right, Bull? And we're not going to know for months.
Yeah.
Is it really riding this defense and baseline competence on offense, and you're in it in a messy AFC North, or is this a full tilt towards 27? We're going to get more clues about that, and you don't ever really know in the offense, and we've seen that long-term rebuilds in this league don't really work out. But right now, this seems more like a march for Arch than like March 26 being the turning point for this roster. And only the most clueless, delusional people can argue with that at this stage. They watched older offensive linemen walk out the door, and they replaced them with more expensive older offensive linemen.
Yeah, that's fair. It's a good point. I mean, there's always when you try to decide what you think is going to happen, we're all making predictions, right? You got to go with the most likely scenario. Is it possible that Shedeur Sanders turns into a good quarterback this year and the Browns have a good season? Yes. Sure, it's possible. Is it something you think is it something that's realistic, that's likely to happen? Of course not. So yes, I mean, based on the current state of the roster, especially the current state of the quarterback position, the odds are this is about building for 27, because if it was just about 26, maybe you would have been more active with some of the veteran quarterbacks that were out there, and maybe they still will be. There's still some guys out there, who knows. But I mean, there's probably not a quick fix for this team in 26.
No, there's not. I mean, even like a sensible trade where the Steelers got Michael Pittman for a late round swap.
Yeah.
The Browns couldn't afford it. Like, Michael Pittman carries a huge cap number in the last year of his contract, and you couldn't push that forward because you had to push money forward to get these offensive linemen in.
Yeah.
So, there is a veteran receiver out there, and whomever he is, Bull, is probably an upgrade. And you're just asking him to get in the right spot and to coach the young guys up. Right. But like Cedric Tillman has done nothing, is headed to the last year of his contract. You're still pot committed to Judy. You have Isaiah Bond, who I think can play in the league and needs a full off season. So we'll see. But the runway is there for Shedeur Sanders. Monken is going to build the offense the way he wants to build it, and they're going to add players a little bit at a time. I think the offensive line was always going to be a little bit in March, a little bit in April, a little bit later. Yeah. See how that evolves. Pretty clear they needed a blocking tight end. They got one. Harold Fana might have to catch 115 passes. Well, can he do that? We'll see.
Yeah.
So
I think the fact that they have a legitimate offensive line coach for the first time since Bill Callahan, that helps.
Let's be honest about that. Like, the forced staff change after 2023 was a disaster. And Mike Vrabel was coaching the offensive line before the bye week.
Right.
But like last year, Mike Blumen was a legitimate offensive line coach. He was coaching guys who didn't have anything left in the tank.
That's fair. That's true. And
when the whole offense is broken, Bull, it's hard.
It's hard to blame. You're right. It's unfair. And for all the talk of Bill Callahan, the Titans' offensive line stunk last year. So he's not a miracle.
Yeah, and look, George Warhop's done it, and I know people like Joe Thomas have endorsed George Warhop, and that's great. But like, if you ask people in Baltimore what went wrong last year outside of Lamar's injury, they would say the offensive line let them down.
Right. Yeah.
No, it's every line is different because you're bringing along young guys, you're moving guys around. What have they? They've gotten guys that have played in proven offenses, played in big games, and have played multiple positions. So it's a lot of money for quick fixes. But if those quick fixes give you a chance to have a true evaluation on your young guys and get from step 1 and step 2 to this, this new coach's offense that you're bringing in, then you're onto something. So, either way, they're going to have a great draft. They're going to have to add more good players, and those guys are going to have to show up ready to play and show that they're in the plans and this, for this blueprint to even get there, because this offense is still the wide. I mean, I don't know where you'd rank the offensive line right now. And again, it comes down to chemistry and fit. Right. But this wide receiver group is bottom 2, and that's probably being generous. And this quarterback group is bottom 3.
Yeah. I mean,
and Shador can change it, but
he can. But right now, it's the Jets, right?
Jets, Arizona.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacoby Brissett's better than Shador Sanders and Deshaun Watson right now.
Of course, yeah.
Of course.
What's funny is there'd be half the audience is going to be like, "Are you guys out of your mind?"
Yeah. Like, do you guys ever watch games?
Yeah.
Right.
Right now, that doesn't mean Shador Sanders won't be better.
Did we watch Jerry Jeudy play football last year?
Unfortunately, yes.
Right.
We did.
Like, what are we talking about here, people?
It's crazy. Let's talk about the defense for a minute, because there was one big change on the defense. Devin Bush out, Quincy Williams in. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it came down to Devin Bush was asking for a number that they couldn't get to. And so pretty much everybody's going to be back on that defense health-wise or barring some moves. So Devin Bush had a great year. He was a great fit in Jim Schwartz's defense. It's going to be a similar defense. It's not going to be the best. They did a great job. They signed Devin Bush to 2 straight 1-year cheap contracts.
Yeah.
And they saw a player that was worth investing in, and he got over his number. Like, this is the league. This is how it goes.
Right.
And they feel better about it for 2 reasons. 1, because Carson Schwarzenegger's there, and 2, because Quincy Williams played under this coordinator.
Right.
He comes in, he can help with the young guys. You need to add that presence. So it's, we heard the GM go on the record and say we're probably going to be the youngest team in the league, and they might still be. But they brought back the 30-year-old punter.
Yep.
They added 2 30-year-old offensive linemen. They added a 29-year-old linebacker, a 28-year-old blocking tight end, and they still have some needs. So, you have to have that balance, Bull. But the bottom line is they played most of last year with 14 rookies on the 53-man roster, like some unheard of stuff.
Yeah.
And they have 9 draft picks, and they're going to have, a premium spot for post-draft free agents because guys know that their guys can make this team.
Right.
So half the roster, more or less, is going to be first and second year players.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
and then again, so that's why, like, unless you loved something or had a better scenario, like giving Shador some runway always made sense. I just think you need to add some sort of competition to that room, because I just refuse to believe anything other than Deshaun Watson being the last resort. Like, there's just so little to gain by trotting Deshaun Watson out there. He has to be on the team because you could not afford to cut him.
Right.
To allow yourself the chance to have no cap room right now, you had to take $40 million off of his cap number.
Yeah.
It's disgraceful. It's embarrassing.
It is. And it's not going to change anytime soon. It's going to take them obviously a while to recover from this. It's going to take forever. But I mean, who at this point, do you think the competition is going to be another rookie, or do you think they will sign a cheap veteran eventually?
Yeah, I think that's 50-50. But I think they have to get a real evaluation on what they think about Ty Simpson and where they think that he'll go. I think they have to look at the Drew Allers and the Taylon Greens and the Peyton Kidd from North Dakota State and say, A, is this a chance worth taking on a multi-year development? And B, like, how early do we need to get him?
Right.
So all these guys have their pro days and stuff over the next 10 days to 2 weeks. the Browns met with them all at the combine and have a chance to come do their research and judge that out. And so I think you look at those options and you stack that versus Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance. Zach Wilson's not going to be an NFL player. And, I think with Richardson and Lance, there is the athletic upside and just the unknown because they both played so little in college and in the pros. Anthony Richardson is younger than Shedeur Sanders. This is his 4th year in the league.
Huh. I didn't realize that. Wow.
It really comes down to the Dylan Gabriel pick last year was just so detrimental. It's just any position player who's a competent NFL player would have helped you along in this rebuild. Instead, you just completely wasted it and completely blew the dynamic and everything else. And now you have a guy on your roster who's not a starting quarterback and can't help you.
Yeah, he's completely useless. Give me your thoughts on what happened with the Ravens and the Maxx Crosby situation.
Yeah, they certainly. Cold feet's one way to say it. Were they intentionally malicious with it? Did they not? I mean, everybody knew Maxx Crosby had surgery. Yeah, everybody knew it at a certain time, right? It's a dirty business, Bull. Yeah. And they looked and said, we can't give up those picks. We just lost Tyler Linderbaum, and we got to be strong up the middle in the AFC North with a quarterback that we got to try to win with right now. Yeah. So it's very, very interesting how it went down and stunning. Right, because like I said, had Maxx Crosby finished the season and then been traded for, nobody knew about it. Oh, okay, something popped up. That's legit. Yeah. But the Raiders did not call the Ravens and say, "We will trade you Maxx Crosby. You have 45 minutes." This was a 2-month auction for teams throughout the league, and the Raiders were going to maximize it. And the Raiders said, "Yes, we're going to get pick 1 and pick 14, and then next year in the next phase of our rebuild, we're going to have another extra first rounder." Yeah. Right? They were willing to do it. Was a great trade for both teams. And then the Rebels pulled from a full 4 days. Maxx spent 2 days in Baltimore.
That is crazy. It really is wild.
It is.
It is what it is. We'll see how it turns out in the long run. They're saying all the right things, but you got to think they're going to trade him eventually. But I don't know. All right, let's switch gears and talk some hoops. The MAC tournament, the shocking upset, the undefeated Miami of Ohio loses to the 8th-seeded UMass 87-83, an all-time stunner, and now they have to wait till another 2.5 days to find out will they get in the tournament or not.
They leave Cleveland 31-1, the reverse Hugh Jackson Bull. I think they're in. And look, their resume is light, and if they end up having to be in via the first 4. I think I'm okay with that, but they have to be in. It's not worth it for the committee. It's bad precedent. It's bad optics. It's bad everything. This team won a lot of games. This team plays a beautiful brand of basketball, and they're tired. They're out of gas. The human element came into play. Yeah, and frankly, they're not a hugely physical team with a great interior presence. And UMass kept throwing up bricks and putting them back in for layups, and Miami was out of gas. So they deserve to be in the tournament. And frankly, I think this gives them a better chance to actually do something next week, whether it's in the first 4 or next Thursday, because they need the rest. Playing 2 more games against common familiar opponents was not going to help them. So now they get the reality check, they get to rest, and whether they have to play, it'll be a home game in Dayton. Miami's not far. Yeah, right. Or they're an 11-12 seed next week. We'll see. But they're going to be right on that borderline of last 4 in or first 4. There's no justification for them being in one of the teams left out. There's just not. The bubble is soft, and it's a good team. So, first time since 1999 that the MAC got 2 teams in. It was a great story. It remains a great story, and it stinks for Cleveland and for the Rocket Arena. Yeah. For the MAC, for all that, for me, who wanted to go there on Saturday, but I'll still go because I got nothing else to do. The Browns aren't signing any wide receivers. It's so hard. College sports is in a weird spot, and it's just so top heavy, right? And so for this team in this environment where you just lose your guys and lose your coaches and, fight for relevance. These games getting moved to ESPNU and CBS Sports Network were a big deal for Miami and for the MAC. And people sitting and talking about the first game of the MAC tournament is a big deal for the MAC. So probably Akron goes to the tournament for its 4th time in 5 years if they can, get 2 more wins in. And I think almost certainly Miami's in, but I think it's total coin toss till Sunday night. Are they going to have to be in the first four or not?
Yeah, it's a good point, because if nothing else, the committee doesn't, because if they don't get in, and we all know they didn't play any good teams. They apparently tried to schedule them and teams wouldn't play them. It's the whole situation is crazy, but fans across the board, this is ridiculous. The regular season, you've rendered it 100% meaningless.
Yeah,
because it's not like if they had gone. What was their final record? 31-0.
31-1, yeah.
So
yeah, 31-1.
If they had gone 29-2 even, 28-3, then okay.
Sure.
But they had a perfect regular season.
Right, now the resume comes into play. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think you're right. Who you think's going to who's your favorite to win the national championship, by the way?
Well, it's been Michigan all along, and then Duke just throttled them in that game in a neutral site a couple of Saturdays ago. So Duke is down some guys. You know, Bo, I think there was only one like huge upset of a small conference team over a power conference team last year, and everybody thought March Madness is dead.
Yeah, right.
Well, what happened in the college football playoff this year? Complete insanity.
Yes.
I think we'll have a level of that. I think at the end we're going to have Michigan and Arizona and two other power programs, but I honestly see a lot of balance. I see teams like St. John's in Illinois that are absolutely capable of getting to the Final Four, Final Two, and absolutely capable of getting dumped next weekend.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Kansas is awesome, and Darren Peterson, the kid from here, is arguably the best and probably the number one pick, but they could get beat by somebody next week. So I think we're going to have a near traditional March Madness. But before I see a bracket, I feel really confident putting Arizona through at least a few games. And if I had to tell you one team that I think is going to be there on Monday night in Indianapolis, I think it's going to be Michigan. Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned St. John's. That was my team as a kid. I still watch them. And that game they've played great, except for that game against UConn. My God, it was awful.
Right. And then they came out the next game or the game before, they were losing to some bum by a like. Listen, St. John's has a really well-paid roster, a really old, experienced roster. They don't have great guard play and great shooting. And that generally means you can't win 6. But when you have to go against their grown men in a one-and-done setting, they can ugly it up. They got one of the greatest coaches to ever do it. And so these kids are 23, 24 years old. They're playing in their 5th NCAA tournament.
I love Zuby Ejiofor. He's a guy. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think he'll be a second-round pick in the NBA, and he'll make a roster. He's a scrappy guy. I know he's not maybe big enough to do his job in the NFL as well, or the NBA as well. But I love him. I think he's a all-heart guy.
You got teams like Houston is not what they've been, but they're still really good, and they have a dynamite top 5 pick freshman guard, Kingston Flemings.
Yeah,
Alabama can probably not win 6 games, but definitely can score on anybody with anybody. You know, they got some really, really good players. So yeah, it's going to be good. It'll be the big boys at the end. We're not going to see St. Peter's crashing through to the final 8, but I do think we're going to see a level of madness. And I do think, like I said, St. John's, Illinois, Alabama are teams that could win 1 or could win 4.
Yeah, that's fair. Zach, great stuff as always, man. Thanks for joining me. Have a nice weekend.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, Zac Jackson in The Athletic. Great to chat with him as always. Obviously, check him out at The Athletic. He's also on with me on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on Wednesdays. And so there you go. All right, everybody have a great weekend. Thank you for joining me as always. I'll be back. Dustin and I will be live on Monday, and then I'll do a Q&A Tuesday. And unless there's breaking news on Wednesday, Tuesday will be my last podcast before my surgery next Thursday. So thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks to Ernie and Levi for producing today. We'll talk to you next time. Where else? But right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody.